and I'm here to do a TTC vlog. I don't know if I'm going to call this an update because it's really not, but last week, Monday, so that was August 11th, I was diagnosed with MTHFR and a high level of natural killer cells. I did like a raw vlog on that, like right after I found out. So I wanted to do a better vlog on it. Information, if there's anybody else out there that is first being diagnosed with this, maybe some of this will be useful to you. And certainly feelings, because I've had a lot of that going through my head. Because this is starting to get a little bit crazy, in my opinion at least. So, all right. I was diagnosed with two things, so I'm going to hopefully get through this, and hopefully this won't be an hour long. If it ends up being really long, maybe I'll chop this into two parts. I'm going to start with MTHFR, which is an acronym for this. Don't ask me to pronounce that. And it is a genetic mutation. It's a genetic mutation that you can inherit from either your mother or your father or both. There's numerous gene markers for it, but there's really only two that the doctors care about that can potentially cause issues, and that is one of them, and that's the other one. That is the code that equals the markers that they test for. So you might see those on tests. You might, hear your doctor say those things if he gets into specifics with you, or you might see those on the internet if you do some of your own research. You can have one or both. The thing is, each one of them you have two copies of, one from your mother and one from your father. So you have two of this one and you have two of this one. The question is, how many of those are mutated and how many of them are normal? For people who have only inherited one mutated copy of this one, or of both, one of each, that would be called heterozygous or compound heterozygous if you have one of both. Heterozygous is actually scarily common. It's like 50% of the population has that. It can cause some of the same issues that people who have full-blown, so to speak, MTHFR, but not nearly as bad and not nearly as many things, which is why having such a large amount of the population have this isn't as bad as it sounds. However, when you start getting into having two of this one, both copies being bad, or two of this one, or any combination thereof where you have both copies of one of them mutated, so you don't have a normal strand of both, then you are homozygous, meaning you inherited a mutated copy from both your mother and your father. And that is more rare. It's even more rare if you have compound homozygous, where all of them are wrong, so to speak. But the bottom line is once you get to the stage where you have both copies of one of these is mutated, past that, it really doesn't matter what you have. Once one of them is entirely mutated from both sides, then you run into some of the stuff that I'm about to explain. People who have a mutated gene on both sides, whether it's one or both or a combination thereof, about 80% of the B vitamins that you take in aren't going to be absorbed. If you have one, what a lot of the population have, then it's about 20%, and there's some arguable data out there, but it's not an amount to really be too concerned about. But once you start getting to 80%, then you got to be concerned. So why? Why doesn't the body absorb the B vitamins if you are MTHFR positive. What it is the body ends up lacking an enzyme it needs to take your regular over-the-counter B vitamin and break it down into a form that the body can actually use. We'll call it an active form or a body-ready form. Just like any other deficiency, if you're not absorbing that many of your vitamins, B vitamins in this case, it can cause problems clear across the board. Quick explanation. The MTHFR gene produces an MTHFR enzyme. Either you have it or you don't. This enzyme breaks down B vitamins a couple of stages deep into the whole process. So let's say the body breaks down B vitamins during stage 1 and it turns it into an amino acid. We'll call it the H amino acid, which stands for this. We'll just call it the H amino acid. And everybody's body does that unless you have something else wrong with you. But once you get to stage 2, the MTHFR enzyme then takes this H amino acid and breaks it down into yet another amino acid that we'll call the M amino acid, which stands for this. From there, your body can take that and turn it into all different kinds of things that it needs. Well, if you don't have the MTHFR enzyme, you never get to stage 2. And what you end up with is an influx of the first stage, the H amino acid, just floating around your body. Too much of that in the body can cause irritation of the blood vessels, leading to heart attack, stroke, blood clots, etc., etc. And it was more recently recognized that an elevated level of this amino acid just floating around in your system is associated with dementia, particularly Alzheimer's. They don't entirely understand why yet, but it may be due to the fact that having a buildup of that can change your blood vessels in the brain, and one thing leads to another and you end up with Alzheimer's. They've been relating Alzheimer's to blood flow in the brain for a long time, but it's only recently that they're starting to attach it to the change in the blood vessels, and having MTHFR can make you more susceptible for that. It's not like you're definitely going to get it, but it certainly makes you more susceptible. Also, if you never get to stage 2 and you have an influx of this amino acid from stage 1 floating around in your body, you never get the second amino acid. The M amino acid, remember this one? Stands for this. So you never get that. It's like you're losing out. Your body never gets something that it needs, which unfortunately your body uses that particular amino acid to make proteins and antioxidants that help your liver process fats, and helps with things like depression and inflammation. And what else? It helps eliminate toxins and heavy metals. It helps process estradiol, which is another way of saying estrogen. Those in the TTC community know how important that is. So, bottom line is serious problems if you don't have this MTHFR enzyme to get you to the bottom steps of breaking down a B vitamin. It can make you more susceptible for all kinds of things because of this. I just listed off some of them and some of the reasons, but the list is much longer. It's like heart attack, stroke, blood clotting, depression, stress, toxin buildup, IBS, migraines, colon cancer, breast cancer, because of the fact that your body's not eliminating certain toxins like it should be, or at least that's the concept. A couple of liver diseases concerning fatty liver diseases, anemia, increased inflammation, increased free radical damage because of the whole eliminating toxin things. I also found some research out there where there are certain studies linking it to schizophrenia-like syndromes and bipolar disorder, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, again, all for the same reasons with the blood flow to the brain thing. And the other things it's known to cause is miscarriage, preeclampsia, placental abruption, low birth weights, and neural tube defects. That last one is certainly a big one. Neural tube defects and miscarriages can be caused by MTHFR. Can be caused by MTHFR because MTHFR also gives you clotting issues. You end up with too much clotting. And because folic acid is technically a B vitamin, it's B5. So if you're not absorbing folic acid, it's like a pregnant woman not having folic acid in her system at all or very little of it. And as it has since been proven for a very long time now, not enough folic acid during pregnancy can cause neural tube defects, spinal bifida, cleft palates, issues with the brain and skull not forming properly. The blood clotting can cause issues with your uterine lining, the placenta, even clots in the umbilical cord. Craziness. Scary, scary craziness. Again, there's no guarantee that if you have MTHFR, you're going to have all of these problems, but it certainly makes you more susceptible to a very long list of issues. So, I have this. What can I do? There's doctors that are still arguing over what you can do and if any of it will help. But I can take B vitamins and folic acid of a different variety. I need to take the active forms. The forms that are post-enzyme breakdown, the body-ready ones that are just ready for my body to do what it needs to do. I can try and eat more foods that are rich in folate, which is the post version of folic acid. Folic acid is not natural. Folic acid doesn't appear in any foods. It's folate that appears in foods, and it's folate that is body ready for my body to absorb it and actually do what it's supposed to be doing with it. These are all the things that you can eat that have folate in them. I can also do my best to avoid toxins from processed foods, to potentially go paleo, change my diet, that sort of thing. Because remember what I said about not having a good ability of eliminating toxins, so you want to try and prevent yourself from putting more toxins than you need to in your body. But like I said, it's not clear how much all of this will do for me or anybody else with MTHFR. There are some studies that show that if it's taken you a while to figure out you have this, you could already have a buildup in your body of the unabsorbed amino acids from that breakdown process that never gets completed in an MTHFR body. Any unabsorbed vitamins I was taking prior to learning this about myself can literally just cause blocks in the absorption channels and cause the good stuff that I've now switched to not matter, to not get absorbed. Again, that's not proven, but there's studies out there where doctors are arguing back and forth as to whether or not this is true. And, still other studies have shown that some of the damage has already been done and essentially can't be reversed, especially when we're talking about the blood vessel thing. I personally am still going to take the body-ready versions of B6 and B12 and folic acid because I've got to do something. Why put more stuff into my body that I already know my body can't do anything with? To me, it's like making the cement wall harder than it already is. Why would I want to do that? Especially since 75% of the things that I'm supposedly susceptible for run in my family. That is the scary part. I read some of those lists and I was floored. Just off the top of my head, my grandmother died of sundowner syndrome, which is a form of Alzheimer's. And her brother also had Alzheimer's, full-blown Alzheimer's. My brother died of a heart attack at a reasonably young age. My father died of colon cancer. My aunt and my father both had high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And, dare I say it, in an extended branch of my family from my father's first marriage, depression and anger management and certain mood disorders and schizophrenia run within that branch. Part of that is from his first wife, which wouldn't apply to me, but still, that's a little scary. So that's what I know about MTHFR, the things that I need to be doing, the things that I'm going to be doing, and the things that I now know that I am susceptible for, that I'm going to try and fight my damnedest against. So for MTHFR, I am taking a baby aspirin every day. I'm taking the body-ready versions of B6, B12, and folic acid. And once I'm on a IVF or FET cycle, I more than likely will be put on Lovenox, which is a heavier duty form of a blood thinner. Now, part two of what I learned. I also have a high level of natural killer cells. Let's start with what those are. What are natural killer cells? These things are part of your immune system. You're supposed to have them. Essentially, they fight off the bad guys. They fight off horrible diseases like cancer and leukemia and tumors and all kinds of stuff. You want natural killer cells in your body. Past that, natural killer cells is fairly new. It's a fairly new concept, and there's a lot of conflicting data out there. They know that when you're talking about immune diseases like RA and myositis and lupus and things like that, they know a lot more about what the natural killer cells are doing or not doing for people with autoimmune diseases, or those who have no natural killer cells in their body, which would be a very bad thing. But when we're talking pregnancy, natural killer cell and that whole concept of what it can or can't do to a pregnancy is very, very new. There's a lot of conflicting data out there. There's a lot of doctors arguing about it. A chunk of the research has shown the possibility that if you have a high level of natural killer cells, the body can attack the embryo. The problem is there's a couple of different kinds of tests for this. The more common one is a blood test. The less common one is a uterine tissue sample. Because one of the other things that the doctors like arguing about is some of the doctors don't think the blood test has anything to do with the uterine tissue sample. Some doctors do, some doctors don't. Some doctors think that natural killer cells can attack the placenta and the embryonic cells. And of course, some doctors think natural killer cells has zero to do with infertility. There's more research out there claiming that natural killer cells may increase in the uterus around implantation. Some of the research doesn't think that this is a bad thing because they think that natural killer cells in the uterus is related to helping the placenta link up with the blood vessels. Which brings you a full circle with some of the doctors that do the uterine tissue sample instead, because they think that the levels that are shown in a regular blood test aren't necessarily the same levels that would be in your uterus, and those levels can change in your uterus depending on what cycle day you're on. Again, let me state, everything I just spewed off, none of it's proven. Some people believe this, some people believe that. No one knows for sure. That's the bottom line. It's all very new. No one knows for sure. A lot of the doctors currently are just doing the blood test, and they're going with the fact that if you're above a certain level of natural killer cell, they need to suppress it. Period. Again, I find all of this a little scary because nobody has definitive answers. When you start looking up things about natural killer cells in general and trying to figure out what has to do with what, you get even more confused, like what I found. The parts I find particularly interesting, aside from everything that I just spewed off, is that allergies are technically an overreaction of the immune system, of which I have a very long list of allergies. So I guess that kind of goes with the high natural killer cell count, or it could just be an antibody reaction. I also find it interesting that I can catch a cold from someone on the other side of town, and I am not kidding. I swear I'm not kidding. There are days where I think I can catch it virtually through this computer screen. Yet I have a high natural killer count. Half of me finds that contradicting. The other half of me is a little bit scared about what it would be like if I didn't have a high natural killer cell count. I'm not quite sure what to think about that. Then there's the fact that my aunt died of dermatomyositis, which is essentially the immune system attacking the skeletal muscles and connective tissues. She had complications that were also having to do with high levels of prednisone to try and lower the effects of that, and it created a domino effect, which is another vlog for another day, but it scares me. And the other thing I found, and I think somebody in the community actually may have told me this also, some doctors believe your natural killer cell count can vary depending on your cycle day, like I mentioned, or depending on if your body is already fighting something off. So, where am I going with this? All right. The treatment, which is technically experimental, because of how new it is, I don't care if you have a Cadillac plan, it's experimental, and the insurance companies want nothing to do with it. The treatments, they can range from mass quantities of prednisone, remember what I just said about my aunt, to a couple different kinds of IV treatments, which I did get into in my last vlog. If you didn't watch that quickly, one is called an IVIG, yet another acronym for this. And the other one is intralipids, which is a bit more common. Either of these treatments, which both come with two entirely different prices and two entirely different sets of side effects or lack thereof, both of the treatments are supposed to suppress the natural killer cells and essentially suppress the immune system from attacking the embryonic cells or the placenta cells or the baby in general until the baby is large enough, which is arguably about 14 weeks. The IVIG treatment is also given to people with autoimmune diseases to try and decrease the severity, including MS, lupus, certain rheumatoid diseases, and dermatomyositis, which is the version of myositis that my aunt had. In those cases, it's supposed to replace antibodies that the body should be making. Intralipids, on the other hand, is an entirely different IV. If I remember correctly, it's a synthetic mixture of soybean oil and egg yolk and glycerin and water. Bottom line is, it's not a wonder drug. It's not like a liquefied berry from the center of the rainforest miracle drug. It's a mixture that they actually originally used to use for the treatment of the overdose of anesthetics. Look it up. More recently, it's being used for the repair of tissue damage when blood supply returns to tissue after a period of lack of oxygen, like a stroke or a brain trauma or a pressure sore or liver transplants. That's another one. But it's all questionable, all of it. It's all questionable. So now for infertility, it's supposed to lower natural killer cell activation. If your activity raises above 10, your activity and your natural killer cell count is above 10. There's some places that give you a percentage. I don't remember what the level number on the test relates to percentage-wise. I just know that the level number on the test needs to be 10 or under. So if you're 10 or over, they want to try and lower it down. So, with either one of these, they're supposed to have a 28-day half-life. But the concept is they need you to get one of these IVs the week of embryo transfer. And then again after a BFP, 2 weeks later, they would test you and see if your levels have risen again comparative to what they were before the first IV. And again, if you're above 10, they're going to give you another IV. From that point out, they're going to test your blood to try and figure out how quickly your particular body either raises the natural killer cell levels or the activity of those natural killer cells. And it can vary from person to person. Poor Lisa had to have, 3, 4 IVs in a matter of a month and a half time, when one IV is supposed to have a 28-day half-life. So it really depends on the person, and I assume it depends on your levels or a combination thereof. I have no idea. I guess I'm about to find out how well my body behaves or doesn't. Your guess is as good as mine. But there are some infertility clinics out there that claim a success rate of 60% of treated individuals achieve viable pregnancies with this treatment, even though it all kind of sounds like guesswork in a white coat. We have success stories in our infertility community on YouTube. People taking the intralipids and getting pregnant when they never got pregnant before. People going for the long haul and having their baby after years and years of struggle. So I'm left with, are natural killer cells good or bad? I seem to have, again, found conflicting data because they don't know. More personally, what scares me is why in the hell do I have a level 26 natural killer cell count? If anybody out there is listening to this that has a level close to that, please inbox me or message me below. I'd love to talk to you. Let me know how things turned out for you. I've been rewatching some of the people in our community that I know had natural killer cell levels, and I can't seem to find anybody with a level in the 20s. I don't know what that means. What is wrong with me? Unfortunately, that's what I end up thinking. What's wrong with me? Or what is in my body somewhere that hasn't come to the surface yet that is causing my natural killer cells to be so high? There's some research out there that states natural killer cell levels have to do with genetics. There's another couple genetics markers out there that cause you to either not have any at all or have too much, or I don't know. It causes me to wonder what may or may not come to the surface once we suppress these natural killer cells that I have. I find that very scary, especially with everything that I just listed off. I mean, let's not forget what the MTHFR can make me more susceptible for. I find all of it quite scary. There's too many questions, too many uncertainties. I find myself questioning if there's any known link between MTHFR and natural killer cell. I tried to find information on that. It's all too new. Nobody really knows. But will I do everything they want us to? I'll try. I'll try if money allows. See my last vlog on that. They don't make it easy money-wise, but we are definitely going to try because really we need to try something. My husband and I are both of the agreement that we need to try something new next time. We can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That is the definition of insanity, and I'm not going to do that. He said, after I told him all of this research, he said, well, the doctors that don't believe in some of this stuff, what do they say to do? Of which I went, they don't believe in it. They don't think it's causing a problem, so they won't tell you to do anything. And he said, well, I don't accept that. We need to do something. And I have to agree with him. But that doesn't mean I'm not scared, because I am. We're putting things in me and messing around with my immune system. I don't take that lightly. I don't. It's scary. And, of course, we'll never know what caused my last miscarriage. There's almost too many things it could be now. There's too many things that could have caused it. Natural killer cell, MTHFR, bad luck with just a subchorionic hemorrhage occurring. I've had bad luck with things before, like a blighted ovum. Who knows? Who knows? But it sure does make it seem like there's too many things we're up against now. Like we're beating our head against a brick wall. And after a while, all the problems seem to kind of merge together. Quick refresher. We have a couple different male factor infertility facts. I occasionally get cysts. I don't always ovulate on my own. My body thinks I'm ovulating, but instead of releasing the egg, that's when the cyst comes into play. And now we've got MTHFR. And the one thing I didn't mention is my husband did test positive for one copy of MTHFR, which is the common one. What that means is if this ever works, I have 2 copies, he has 1. Do the math. Our child will definitely have one or both. And the one thing that scares me about that I keep trying to push off, there's some research out there where they're trying to see if MTHFR has any link to autism. There's some numbers, some crazy numbers out there where they think that 90% of autistic children have one or both of the MTHFR gene. 90%? Are you kidding me? Again, all of it is a big, huge unknown, and it's scary. But yeah, we're moving forward, and we're going to try and do all of these things so long as it all works out. We're going to go with the intralipids. Now, if you watched my last TTC vlog, you know that because of the level of natural killer cells I have to take a double intralipid IV every time they do it. I suppose if during the testing, let's say I get a BFP, hopefully, if they start testing my blood and it only raises to something that can be accomplished with a single IV, of course they will do that, but that's all one big unknown. We don't know how my body's going to react to it. They really don't even know if a double intralipid IV is going to do the trick and get me under 10. They're thinking it will, but it's not guaranteed. So you start to wonder if you're fighting against an already lost battle. I'm not going to lie. I've had a lot of feelings about this. It scares the daylights out of me. I'm worried it's never going to work. I am. But that's what I'm thinking on bad days. On good days, I kind of push it to the side and say, hey, this is what we have to do. This is the cards we were dealt. So now we've got to make sure that we turn it into a winning hand, and that's that. I can't go back in time and change the genetics I was given. I can't go back in time and change whatever the hell caused us to have some of these other problems, which we'll never know. Just got to try and make it work. Got to try and make it work because we're the ones that write that final chapter. And if we don't keep trying, that chapter's already written. So I'm scared. I'm scared as hell. But we're moving forward. And hopefully that'll be soon. Hopefully that'll be soon. I expect to call them with cycle day 1 sometime next week. And we'll see where that brings us. We'll see what the steps are going to be. If this is going to be a quick road to the next embryo transfer, or if it's going to be a long road to the next embryo transfer. That probably depends on whether or not I currently have any cysts going on or not. So we'll find out. A couple of people asked me how many we're going to put in. We have 3 that are left. I know the doctor is going to want us to do 2, but I'm kind of hoping that after all of this, I will have a box to stand on when I'm telling him, hey, I want all 3, and maybe he'll understand why I want all 3. Again, I'm not going to lie. This is a lot to have to go through and do for a hope and a prayer on one FET cycle. So whatever we can do to increase the odds, like putting in all three, I really want to do that. And frankly, the numbers are going to add up. The dollars are going to add up. I don't know if we can do this more than one more time. I honestly don't know. And if it turns out that we can't, I don't want to waste the 3 embryos we have left. I want to use them. That's what it comes down to, and that's what I'm going to tell him. There's a lot of unknowns right now, a lot of unknowns, so we need to go for it. We need to go for it. All right, this video is crazy long. I'm going to let you guys go. Hopefully some of this helped somebody out there other than me just rambling and letting it all out, because that always helps. And I'm grateful that you guys listen to me. If anybody out there can tell me anything about anything that I just rambled for 40 minutes about, please let me know. If anybody has natural killer cell levels in the 20s, I would love to hear your story. If you have a channel, put it below. I'd love to subscribe. I'm just looking for all the information I can possibly absorb, and certainly any support we can get. Past that, if you have MTHFR and there's anything else I need to know about that wasn't in this video, please let me know about that. I am all ears. I'm a big absorbing sponge right now of any of the data I can find or be told about these 2 issues. And that's that. That's that. I will talk to you guys about TTC related stuff probably once we're into the next cycle, and hopefully I will then know what the plan is and I will update you. Thanks again for the support and for listening and for caring. I appreciate every single last one of you. Thank you to the new subscribers. I've gotten a number both for Veda and for GTC related stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Talk to you later.